So, I am Dr. Bibhupada Mahapatra, Associate Professor Physiology in a government medical college. Want to teach you the cardiovascular system. The learning objectives. The students will be able to know, either he or she must know after completing this course. He or she must be able to name the different parts of cardiovascular system, that is CVS, and give their functions. Appreciate the contribution of great cardiovascular scientists such as William Harvey and E.H. Starling. Understand one of heart as a central pump. Name chambers of the heart and their valvular arrangement. Correlate the functional history of vessels, histology of the vessels, different layers in different blood vessels with their functions. Give the functional classification of blood vessels and give their functions with examples. Name different parts of vascular system and give their functions. Appreciate the differences between systemic and pulmonary circulation. Understand the importance of central and peripheral blood vessels, blood volumes and vessels. CVS transports essential nutrients, oxygen, hormones, etc. to the tissues and removes the products of metabolism from the tissue and also contributes to the regulation of many homeostatic functions. These functions are carried out by altering the amount of blood pumped and by changing the caliber of the vessels. It performs efficiently to meet the usual challenges of day-to-day activities. Now, coming to the scientists who have contributed for the knowledge of cardiovascular, developing knowledge of cardiovascular system. One is William Harvey. He lived from 1578 to 1657, a student of Girolamo Fabrigi, 1537 to 1619 at Padua, and greatly influenced by Aristotle. Studied in detail his master's work on venous valves. He analyzed the action of the heart, blood ejected by heart contraction, estimated amount of blood in the body, and demonstrated that blood continuously ejected from the heart returns back to it. He extensively studied blood circulation through arteries and described the functions of the venous valves and clarified circulation of blood through lungs. As a distinguished teacher and physician, his lecture notes on circulation in 1616 were highly appreciated by all. Now, components of the cardiovascular system This cardiovascular system consists of a central pump, the heart, and extensive network of blood vessels. Coming to the central pump, that is the heart. Now, the primary function of the heart is to pump the blood. The heart consists of a dual pump, the right and left pump. The right pump, right ventricle propels blood into the pulmonary circulation, and the left pump, that the left ventricle propels blood into the systemic circulation. Output of each pump at rest is about 5 liters per minute. Output increases manifold in daily routine works, exercise and emotions. Heart has 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Right side of the heart, the right atrium and the right ventricle. And the left side of the heart, the left atrium and the left ventricle. The right side of the heart is the right atrium and the right ventricle. The right atrium receives blood from the body through superior and inferior vena cava and empties blood into the right ventricles. The right atrioventricular valve or the tricuspid valve guards the flow of blood from right atrium to right ventricle and prevents flow of blood in the backward direction. The right ventricle pumps blood into the pulmonary circulation through the pulmonary trunk, the pulmonary arteries where gaseous exchange takes place, and pulmonary valve prevents backflow of blood from pulmonary trunk into the right ventricle. The left side of the heart consists of left atrium and left ventricle. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the pulmonary circulation via pulmonary veins and empties blood into the left ventricle through left atrioventricular valve or mitral valve. The mitral valve ensures unidirectional flow of blood from left atrium to the left ventricle. Left ventricle pumps blood into the systemic circulation through the aorta. The aortic or the semilunar valve which is present at the base of the aorta prevents backflow of blood into the left ventricle from the aorta. Then the circulatory system, the blood vessels, blood from the left ventricle is pumped into systemic circulation, blood from the right ventricle enters the pulmonary circulation. The systemic arteries branch and thicker than the pulmonary arteries, therefore systemic circulation provides more resistance to blood flow. Left ventricle pumps blood at a much higher pressure. The peak left ventricular pressure is 120 mm mercury, whereas the peak right ventricular pressure is only 25 mm of mercury. Now the histology of blood vessels. The blood vessels have three layers, that is the tunica externa or adventitia, consists of elastic tissues and collagen fibers. Tunica media, the muscle layer, consists of smooth muscles and elastic tissues, contraction of which causes vasoconstriction and relaxation causes vasodilatation. The tunica interna or intima consists of endothelial cell lining. Now the components of the vessel wall: endothelial cells, elastic tissue, smooth muscles and fibrous tissue. Endothelial cells forms inner lining of the blood vessels. Vascular endothelium presents as a single continuous layer. In capillaries, the vessel wall is formed only by a layer of endothelial cells present on the basal lamina. This makes them suitable for exchange of substances between blood and tissues. They secrete many chemicals and hormones. Then elastic tissue, the amount of elastic tissue present in the vessel wall determines the ability of the vessels to stretch. It is made of elastin and microfibrils. Elastins, protein molecules formed by nonpolar amino acids. Microfibrils, minute fibril strands made up of glycoproteins. Elastic fibers, abundant in arteries and veins, less in arterioles and absent in capillaries and venules. Then the smooth muscle is present in all vessels except capillaries and venules. Fibrous tissue, in blood vessels the fibrous tissue is made up of collagen fibers, mainly type 1 and type 3 collagen. It is present in all parts of vascular tree except capillaries. It prevents distension of vessels and increases wall tension. Then physiological classification of blood vessels: Windkessel vessels, resistance vessels, exchange vessels and capacitance vessels. Windkessel vessels, they are the aorta and large arteries. It have more elastic elements in their wall, therefore these vessels have higher compliance. Compliance, what is compliance? Compliance is unit, that means the unit rise in pressure because of unit rise in volume, that is compliance. Okay. During systole, their wall stretches and during diastole, their wall recoils back. The recoiling effect is called Windkessel effect. Resistance vessels are the arterioles, metaarterioles and smaller arteries. They have thick muscle coat and less elastic fiber in their wall. Therefore, they provide resistance to flow of blood. The maximum resistance to flow is offered by arterioles. Thus, arterioles form the major seat of peripheral resistance. Exchange vessels, capillaries are thin vessels. The blood flow is sluggish in capillaries. These two factors, thin wall and sluggish flow, favor exchange of gases and nutrients along with capillary wall. Therefore, capillaries are called exchange vessels. Capacitance vessels, veins can accommodate large amount of blood without increasing much pressure in them. Therefore, large and small veins are otherwise called capacitance vessels. Then divisions of the vascular system: the arterial system, the system of capillary networks and the venous system. Arterial system consists of aorta, large arteries, small arteries, arterioles and metaarterioles. Function: to deliver oxygenated blood from lungs to the tissues. Arteries: it has thick tunica media innervated by sympathetic fibers resulting in vasoconstriction. The arteries are susceptible to atherosclerosis, a process in which there is much formation of atheromatous plaque in the lumen of blood vessels. Pathological atherosclerosis reduces blood flow to the organs and causes myocardial infarction and stroke. Arteries branch out to form arterioles. It regulates the resistance to flow. Thus, they control distribution and rate of blood flow to the organs. It has thick muscle coat and few elastic fibers in their wall. The ratio of the thickness and of the wall to the diameter of the vessel is high in arterioles. Hence, arterioles are the main resistance vessels. They serve as stopcock to of the circulation. Atherosclerosis of arterioles is called arteriosclerosis. Arterioles terminate in meta-arterioles. Meta-arterioles are histologically same as that of arterioles except that the muscle coat is thin and lumen is smaller. A flap of smooth muscle called precapillary sphincter is present at the end of meta-arterioles or arterioles. This sphincter regulates the blood flow to the capillaries. System of capillary network originates from arterioles and meta-arterioles. The flow of blood is slow in the capillaries that favor exchange of materials. Capillaries connect the arterioles to the venules. It is made up of a single layer of endothelial cells. Capillaries are therefore called exchange vessels because of thin walls. Microcirculation, the circulation of blood through the capillaries. There is no smooth muscle in the capillaries, therefore constriction or dilatation of capillaries is regulated by the precapillary sphincter. However, capillaries do constrict directly due to the presence of pericytes and few myosin-like filaments in their walls. Venous system, it consists of collecting venules and small and large veins. Function to collect, store and deliver blood into the arteria. The collecting venules originate from the capillaries and drain into venules that in turn drain into veins. The larger veins finally drain blood into the arteria. The delivery of blood into the arteria is called venous return. Venules, many capillaries unite to form venules. Function, collect blood from the capillaries and drain into the veins. They are innervated by sympathetic fibers. Venules unite to form veins that join together to form larger veins. Veins have thin muscle coat. About 2/3 of blood volume in the systemic circulation is present in the veins. Therefore, veins serve as the blood reservoir. The veins in the limbs, especially in the lower limbs, contain valves within. Venous valves facilitate venous return. Venous return is also assisted by contraction of the skeletal muscle of the limb in which the veins are located. Then systemic circulation. The circulation of blood through the systemic vascular bed is called systemic circulation. This is also called peripheral circulation or the greater circulation, which contains 80 to 85% of the total volume of blood. It provides oxygenated blood to different parts of the body and drains venous blood back to the heart. The left ventricle pumps blood into systemic circulation. The pressure in the systemic circulation is high. The systolic pressure is 100 to 140 millimeter mercury. The pressure drops progressively as the blood flows from the arteries to the veins. The arteries and arterioles have high resisting vasoconstrictor tone. Thus, they provide higher resistance to blood flow. The capillaries are longer and narrower. Therefore, systemic capillaries also provide resistance to blood flow. The pulmonary circulation. The circulation of blood through pulmonary vascular bed is called pulmonary circulation. This is also called the central circulation or the lesser circulation, which contains only 10 to 12% of total blood volume. It provides a low resistance pathway for the entire output of right ventricle to traverse through the lungs. Function, exchange gases between the blood and the atmosphere. The arteries have thin wall and large lumen and also rich sympathetic innervation but lack resting vasoconstrictor tone. The arterioles have thin wall and larger lumen, therefore pulmonary arterioles provide low resistance to flow. The capillaries are shorter and wider, consequently resistance also less in capillaries. The vessels in the pulmonary circulation provide a low resistance circulation. Equal amount of blood is ejected by the right and left ventricle, but right ventricle pumps blood into much smaller compartment, the pulmonary circulation. So, the difference between systemic circulation and pulmonary circulation, they are synonymous. Synonyms of systemic circulation is peripheral circulation or greater circulation, and pulmonary circulation synonyms are central or lesser circulation. Okay. Then pressures, systemic circulation is high pressure, pulmonary circulation is low pressure. Systolic pressure in systemic circulation 100 to 140 millimeter mercury, in pulmonary circulation is 20 to 30 millimeter mercury. Diastolic pressure in systemic it is 60 to 90 millimeter mercury, in pulmonary it is 5 to 15 millimeter mercury. Mean pressure in systemic 100 millimeter mercury and and in pulmonary it is 15 millimeter of mercury. Pulse pressure, it is 20 to 50 millimeter of mercury in systemic circulation and 10 to 15 millimeter of mercury in pulmonary circulation. Arteries, thick wall and narrow lumen in systemic circulation, and in pulmonary circulation thin wall and large lumen. Arterioles in systemic circulation thick wall and narrow lumen, and pulmonary circulation thin wall and large lumen. Capillaries, long and narrow in systemic circulation and short and wide in pulmonary circulation. Resting sympathetic tone, high vasoconstrictor tone at rest in systemic circulation, absent lack of vasoconstrictor tone in pulmonary circulation. Peripheral resistance in systemic circulation is high, in the pulmonary circulation is low. Capillary blood flow in systemic circulation is continuous, and pulmonary circulation it is pulsatile.